will or the colleges of the Fenway. If you have questions or concerns, please contact Chris Scanlon at 617-989-4211. It is currently 10 a.m. on September 13th. You're listening to The Decision, Pick Your Poison. We cover the political race from your perspective. Today on the show, we'll be discussing the 2016 ballot initiatives. I'm Tim Shea, and I'm joined in the studio today with my co-host, Brendan Elliott and Jackson Zendzian. But first, the news.
This is Matt Bennett. Today in headlines, Clinton aides promise to release more of her medical records. Democrats say Clinton's bout of pneumonia alone is unlikely to fundamentally alter the presidential race, but some say it adds to a growing sense of uncertainty. And in local news, a Worcester high school football player joined a growing movement of kneeling during the pregame national anthem started by Colin Kaepernick of the San Francisco 49ers. The movement is in protest of injustice and inequality in the United States against African Americans. In weather, the forecast for today is partly sunny with a high of 82 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 65 degrees Fahrenheit with 10 to 20 mile-per-hour winds. Tomorrow afternoon, thunderstorms are predicted with rain continuing throughout the rest of the day. Thursday, however, clear, sunny skies are expected with a comfortable temperature of 69 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. It is 10:01 a.m.
Do you like rock concerts?
Yes, of course.
Do you like listening to people talk?
Well, sure.
Did you know that normal talking volume is between 40 and 60 decibels, and rock concerts volume can be between 110 to 140 decibels?
Wow, no I didn't.
Now headphones volumes can be upwards of 110 decibels, and I don't think you want to have a rock concert in your ears all day. Do yourself a favor, keep the volume down and take a break from all the noise. Brought to you by the Week.
So you've heard it over and over again. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. But have you really been listening to your mom lately? Breakfast provides vital nutrients and energy for getting over that mid-morning slump. It also helps to maintaining a healthy body weight. Just grab some toast, fruit, or cereal, and you're good to go. It takes just a few minutes every morning to be healthy. So start listening to your mom again. This message has been brought to you by...
Hello, we're back. You're listening to The Decision, Pick Your Poison, Wentworth's own political coverage of November's elections, where today we're investigating the 2016 ballot initiatives. I'm your host, Tim Shea, and again, I'm joined in the studio this morning with Brendan Elliott and Jackson Zendzian. Later on in the hour, we'll be joined by the interviewee. Okay. We're going to begin to talking about a little bit the MS voter initiative regarding gambling facilities. So, question 1 of the ballot initiatives is allowing another slots parlor in Mass. Right now we already have one, which is at Plain Ridge Casino, but they're trying to get another one, which would most likely be located in Suffolk Downs.
Okay. So the question, as read on the ballot, says a yes vote would allow a second slots parlor to exist in Massachusetts. According to the 2011 gambling law, there are currently allowed to be there currently had to be 3 resort casinos and 1 slots parlor. The one that currently exists is owned by Penn National Gaming, which operates in Plain Ridge Park Casino in Plainville.
All right, so there's been a lot of arguments going on around this subject. So there's arguments that oppose question 1 that says legalized gambling is too new and unproven, that they shouldn't be expanding right now. They should allow it to kind of like, they should experiment with the casinos we have right now. And then if it works, then yeah, go ahead, open some more. But right now it's kind of too new. There's no proven facts saying, oh, like it's definitely worth it. And then another argument is saying that the one slot parlor that we actually have has underperformed. Like it hasn't really gotten the revenue that they expected. And then we're going to have 5 casinos in Massachusetts by 2019. And the Wall Street Journal actually says then we'll have more than the market wants or needs, so they might not stay in business too long if they can't keep the customer base. Another argument says that the ballot was actually written by a casino developer strictly for his financial gain. And the way it looks right now is it looks like that might actually be true, because 100% of the donations came from a single developer, which is kind of shady.
So who is that developer, Tim?
So that developer is Capital Productions, LLC, from New Hampshire, and they donated about $390,000 to this.
And why are they interested in building this? Is it a
So-
slot parlor?
Yeah, so the slot parlor would most likely go to Suffolk Downs because it is the only real location that meets all the requirements for the slots parlor.
Yeah, so another interesting thing about this question, there are pretty specific guidelines for the requirements of where this slot parlor would be built. There are 5, actually. I'd like to read them for you. So the first is that the slot parlor must be built in an area that is at least 4 acres in size. Secondly, it must be adjacent to and within 1,500 feet of a racetrack, including the track's additional facilities such as the tracks, grounds, paddocks, barns, auditorium, amphitheater, and bleachers. Third, where a horse race meeting may be physically held. Fourth, where a horse racing meeting shall have been hosted. And fifth, not separated from the racetrack by a highway or railway. So the interesting thing that I find about all of these requirements is they really seem to only be met by one particular area in Massachusetts. So there's, we're kind of subjecting a statewide ballot to a local matter because, only one place, being Suffolk Downs, is going to be able to host it under these conditions.
Yeah, that's what doesn't really make sense, because the ballot initiative is supposed to be statewide, it kind of influences everybody. But
Could you argue that perhaps even though it's a local issue, that it has a wider reaching effect? Maybe it doesn't just affect the local community of Suffolk Downs area, but the whole greater, county and further?
I think that argument could be made, but because from Massachusetts, anybody could go visit this racetrack and slots parlor, but with how many casinos are being built right now, I think it's starting to become more of a local issue because Massachusetts is not a gigantic state, and right now we're going to have one in Western Mass with the MGM, and then the Suffolk is going to be out by more Boston area. The last casino is supposed to go in southeastern Mass, so I feel it's becoming more local because there's a casino in every kind of quadrant of Massachusetts, so you wouldn't really have to go too far to go to Suffolk when you could go to, say, MGM Springfield.
Yeah, Matt, I'd like to give some input on your question too. So under state law, a statewide ballot cannot apply to one locality, so that's why there's been some controversy regarding question 1, because it really seems like we're trying to force this casino upon this locality. But one of the things that's also important to note is even if this does pass, it doesn't just mean they can just go ahead and build this casino. They're still going to have to get approval from the locals, so they're going to be subject to town election as well.
Yeah, so, but what's weird is since it would make more sense if it was saying anywhere can kind of try to get this one slots license, but essentially it is really going to only Suffolk Downs because that's the only one it really faces. That makes it kind of much more local. Like if it was more just like anybody in the state could open or like kind of like fight for this one slots license, that would make it more of like an overall Massachusetts matter. But right now it seems more like just a single one place type deal.
So when you guys were both doing your research, did you find any? I've never gambled myself, so I don't know a lot about the gambling scene in Massachusetts, but do we have a lot of statistics or know anything about business or tourism and their opinions on the matter?
So I actually could not find too much information because, like I said earlier, it is very new to Massachusetts as a whole. But I think it could go really either way because it does create many jobs, but with it, it brings like probably more drinking and drugs into the area because casinos are kind of like a big party if you look at like Vegas and stuff. So I think those will be abused more, and then they'll kind of flood into like the town and like the surrounding community, which would obviously be bad for everybody.
Right, especially right now when we're having the whole opioid epidemic going around the area.
I think something else worth noting is this isn't just going to be solely a slot parlor. There's also going to be a hotel in the proposed. So the town mayor for Revere, he is open to having a hotel built, but he is definitely still iffy on the fact of, the idea of having a casino. So that comes back into the whole state versus city kind of controversy.
So I think this would potentially affect the colleges of the Fenway because it is going to be located, the slots parlor most likely will be located right in Suffolk Downs,
Right.
which is like right in Boston. So I think a lot of the students would be affected because they would either go to like the track or the slots parlor and like spend their money. And as you guys know, college students already are kind of not too rich to begin with. So if like it opens up, yeah, we could be seeing like even more wasteful habits and like potential like gambling addictions like within like the students when like this location is so close and like easy to reach.
I think that's an interesting point. Certainly it does affect students a great deal, but I wonder what students think of being restricted in terms of their gambling rights as opposed to just, even if it's for their own protection.
What do you mean? Like, how would they be restricted?
Well, if they can't go and gamble at this slots parlor, that they might feel that that's a restriction, even if it's for their own protection.
Yeah, I think most students would be able to because I know sometimes it's 21 and up, but that still classifies about maybe half the students are over 21 now. So I think like a majority would be able to reach it. And if it's 18 plus, then that's almost 100% of college students.
Okay. I think something else we could talk about is on the topic of it being a statewide matter. So just because it's being hosted locally, for instance, the construction workers who would have to build such a slots parlor and the employees who would operate it and the visitors who would play the slots, they wouldn't be limited to just Revere. Everyone from Massachusetts is going to be interested in coming to see this. And all the tax revenues that the casinos generate are going to benefit the state. So it's not like just the local area is going to be, money-wise, be benefiting from this. The whole state could benefit from the casinos.
Yeah, but like I said, like the slots parlor we already have is already underperformed, so it might not be the greatest idea to open a new one right now.
Perhaps. Well, we'll see what the voters have to say in November.
All right, believe it or not, it's already 10:15, and it's time for a break. When we return, we'll be discussing charter schools. You're listening to The Decision. Pick your poison here on Wire, Wentworth's internet radio station.
To do around campus? Do you love the thrill of intense competition? If so, come to the sporting events that are right here at Wentworth and support your Leopards. With a large variety of sports to choose from, you can go and watch your favorite team or your favorite sport. For more information on your next go-to activity, log online and go to www.wentworthathletics.com, where you can view all of the upcoming schedules from every team. Go Leopards!
Are you an architecture student looking to break into the professional field? Wentworth's chapter of the American Institute of Architecture Students can help you do just that. A student-run organization, AIAS hosts a variety of events that can help prepare any level design student for the professional world. If you would like more information, you can email them at aias@wit.edu or go to aias-wit.
Good morning. You're listening to The Decision. Pick your poison, the College of the Fenway's political news show, looking at the upcoming elections. And this is Wire, Wentworth Institute of Technology's internet radio station. It is now 10:16. We're going to turn our attention in this segment to ballot question 2, increasing the number of charter schools. But first, the news.
The forecast for today's weather is partially sunny with a high of 82 degrees Fahrenheit, a low of 65 degrees Fahrenheit, with 10 to 20 mile per hour winds. Tomorrow afternoon, thunderstorms are predicted with rain continuing throughout the rest of the day. Thursday, however, clear, sunny skies are expected with a comfortable temperature of 69 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. And in the news, an arsonist is being sought in a fire that damaged a mosque attended by the Orlando gunman. A surveillance video showed a man on a motorcycle approaching the building with a bottle of liquid and some papers and then leaving when there was a flash. Trump stands up for backers against Clinton's deplorables remark. Even as Trump defends his backers, however, one in the crowd lashed out at protesters at the rally, appearing to punch and slap them. It is 10:18.
The average person creates 4 pounds of trash every day, but about 75% of this trash is recyclable. Just 100 soda cans could save enough energy to light your room for 2 weeks. Beatty Hall and many of the other buildings on campus have recycling bins that are clearly labeled. It only takes a bit of extra time. Your superpower could be reducing waste. This message is brought to you by the Leopard's Den.
Do you dream of one day holding a federal government office where you have excessive amounts of work, endless stress, and find little to no enjoyment in doing so?
Just do it! No!
We didn't think so. If you're interested in politics, but don't enjoy all the work that comes with a federal or state office, check out Wentworth Student Government to have a voice in your college community. Meetings are every Monday from 6 to 7 p.m. in BD 432. Your voice, our mission. Wentworth Student Government.
For this segment, we're going to talk about the second question on Massachusetts ballot for this year's election. The question as written on the ballot reads, Question 2, Charter School Expansion. The question, if approved, would let state education officials approve up to 12 new charter schools a year. So, yes, they can either open brand new charter schools or expand existing charter schools beginning January 1st, 2017. The priority of these schools would be given to applicants in public school districts that are in the bottom 25% in the past 2 years, as far as MCAS scores go. They have several supporters, such as Government Charlie Baker and Senator Mike Rodriguez, and they argue that every child deserves the same opportunity to attend a great public charter school inside their community. So it would essentially be giving more options to students for their education.
I know a lot of my peers came from charter schools and swear by them, but I personally have mixed feelings on the matter. I know that I wonder why we don't fix the public schools themselves instead of forcing them out into charter schools.
So this would actually most likely take funding away from the public schools. So ones that are already struggling would be even more drained of money to kind of fund these charter schools in their district. So although it helps students, it's also hurting them at the same time by taking away certain programs due to lack of funding.
Well, that always seems to be the issue with education is funding.
Yes. So, but the polls we have from certain colleges in Massachusetts, such as UMass Amherst, Western New England University, Suffolk, they all supported it right about 50%. So UMass had 51% support, WinU had 51% support, and Suffolk had 50%. So, it looks like most students are looking to expand the education in Massachusetts.
Were you able to find anything on the teachers' unions and their opinions?
I could not find any. So, but I did find that a lot of the public school teachers, as is, are against it, which was kind of shocking to me. I would think that teachers would be all for it, more schools, more teaching positions, but the teachers that are already employed by public schools are against it because they will have their school will have less money to be able to do stuff, and then especially if you are an art teacher or a music teacher, it's less money as a whole for your program because I don't know, those ones are already kind of struggling as is.
Something about the charter schools, the fact that what a charter is it's a school that's reviewed usually every 5 years, and the charter needs to be renewed before the school can be continue to exist. So if at the end of the 5 years they aren't living up to the requirements, they'll shut down. So do you guys have an opinion on schools that operate in this manner as opposed to ones that would just be continually open, such as a normal public school?
I know I was reading on the news the other day that one charter school in a different area closed down, 2 weeks after the school year began.
Well,
and I can't imagine being the parent of that child.
Yeah, that's a big decision to have to make.
Yeah, it's like a charter school.
Did you hear anything
story
about why they closed so quickly?
Funding, I believe. Funding.
It was funding. Okay.
So, yeah, but 12 new schools every year seems excessive.
Well,
or expansions.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's or expansions. I think that's a big part of it.
But I know it said in just about 3 years we would triple the number of charter schools we have right now, which is incredible. So,
well, and you said there's not even a large demand for the ones we already have.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the thing is that since we don't have too many right now, the students that want to attend usually have to make quite the commute to and from school every day, which...
Yeah, I think that's one of the big reasons this is really getting pushed to even be on the ballot, is because these parents, they want to be able to have some discretion of where their kids are going to be educated. They don't want it to just be necessarily, we need to enroll our kids in our local public school. They want to be able to say, hey, at least we have the option to enroll in a charter. I noticed that, well, I read that if this is approved, approvals under the law would expand statewide charter school enrollment by up to 1% of the total statewide public school enrollment each year. So that's opening up a whole 1%, which is a pretty big expansion, actually. Yeah.
So, how do you guys think this would impact the colleges of the Fenway?
Colleges of the Fenway?
Yeah.
So something that we could investigate is where students are coming from. Say new freshmen. Are they coming from public schools? Are they coming from charter schools? We could look into if more of the students are coming from charter schools, then it might impact enrollment rates in the colleges of the Fenway.
Yeah. I'm also looking at when the students of the colleges of the Fenway graduate. So, we're in a technology school, so there's architecture, engineering. But
Right.
when there's all these schools being built, that's also a lot of potential jobs. And then when there's teaching majors, they could potentially kind of slide into one of these new charter schools.
I know certainly Simmons and MassArt have teaching programs. I'm sure they have some fairly strong opinions, the students within those programs, regarding the charter school issue.
So, all right. So, yeah, I think, all in all, I think it would be worth it. I kind of hope it goes through. Any views?
I disagree entirely.
Really? You don't want any more charter schools?
Well, I like the idea in theory, but I look at what actually happens when they are in place, and I feel like they're not really accessible to everyone, and it just leaves the people that don't have proactive parents or the people that are lower on the economic scales just a little bit at an even more disadvantage, because the proactive people aren't interested in fixing the system that's already in place for everyone.
So you think opening more schools would actually decrease the education?
Actually,
it would
I think it would increase the education for the kids at the charter schools. It's the rest of the kids that I worry about.
So you think a majority would kind of suffer for a few to prosper is what?
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, something interesting I was reading about charter schools. So a charter school versus a regular school, a charter school has more of a discretion to, say, cut or expel a student if they're performing poorly, just in the way that they'll handle poor performing students. So I think that's one of the reasons why charter schools can, on paper show statistics that they're performing better, is because they kind of cut off the bottom 20% or so more easily than a public school can. They don't have the same accommodations necessary.
So they're kind of cheating a little bit, because if somebody's not doing great, they'll just kind of get them out of there rather than have the lower stats.
I'd like to do that with my GPA. Just take the bottom 20% of classes, cut them off.
So
Yeah, it's one way to boost your average.
yeah. So, I know the finance for this was, once again, all for support. There was no financing for people against this question. They raised just over $500,000, $545,159.95 to be completely exact. And so far, they've spent $540,000. So they have just about $5,000 to spare until the actual date. So November 8th, they have $5,000 right now. And then after that, they should be good. So,
Yeah, so we'll have to see how the voters think come November. Question 2.
all right. So,
Do you like rock concerts?
Everyone
like rock concerts?
Yes, of course.
Good morning. You're listening to The Decision, Pick Your Poison, the College of the Fenway's political news show, looking at the upcoming elections. And this is Wire, Wentworth Institute of Technology's internet radio station. It is now 10:33, and we are going to turn our attention to the segment to ballot question 3 regarding farm animal containment. Later on in the hour, we're going to be joined by Lizzie Falvey. But first, the news.
Hi, I'm Matt Bennett, here with the news. In local stories, a Barnstable man has been arrested for what police say is theft of flags and banners, including a black and blue banner placed on an overpass meant to honor police officers. In international news, quiet is reported in most of Syria as ceasefire continues to come into effect, but most of the powerful rebel groups have shown misgivings over the truce deal, which was crafted without their input. The forecast for today's weather is partially sunny with a high of 82 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow afternoon, thunderstorms are predicted with rain continuing throughout the day. Thursday, we are expected to have clear and sunny skies with a comfortable temperature of 69 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. It is now 10:34 a.m.
PSA.
In a moment, we'll have some PSAs for you.
Do you wear sunglasses in the summer but leave them at home for the winter? You may want to reconsider. It is actually significantly more important to wear sunglasses in the winter, as the white snow can reflect about 80% of ultraviolet rays. In the short term, this can result in sunburned eyes or snow blindness, and in the long term, can cause permanent damage to your eyes in the form of cataracts.
Do you like rock concerts?
Yes, of course.
Do you like listening to people talk?
Well, sure.
Did you know that normal talking volume is between 40 and 60 decibels, and rock concerts volume can be between 110 to 140 decibels?
Wow, no I didn't.
Now, headphones volumes can be upwards of 110 decibels, and I don't think you want to have a rock concert in your ears all day. Do yourself a favor, keep the volume down.
For this segment, we're going to talk about the third question on the Massachusetts ballot question. So the question is, should farms be able to use extreme animal containment? And we will be joined with our guest, Lizzie Falvey, who is a vegetarian. So question 3 would prohibit breeding pigs, calves raised strictly for veal, egg-laying hens being held in confined spaces. And by confined spaces, I mean it's a space that will prevent the animal from lying down or standing up or fully extending its limbs or turning around freely. So, and then this initiative would also prevent business owners from knowingly selling food from animals held in this way, even if it is from out of state. So there is a couple exceptions to this, which is temporary holding cells for transportation, fairs, and medical research and vet exams. So, yeah, I think it would be good, but also bad. Like, it has its ups and downs because it would make eggs more expensive because they'd have to expand the cages, which would thus give them less room to operate and have less hens. So it'd definitely up the price of certain foods.
So this is Lizzie Falvey, and thank you so much for having me on your program today. I think what's really interesting is, cost is an issue, and we want to make sure that people have access to food, including eggs and meat. But the bigger problem is most people don't understand the suffering that animals go through in order to come to our plates. And I think there's some pretty sturdy research that shows that when people are exposed to the conditions in which the animals are raised, they immediately begin to rethink their food choices. So, for example, let's just take eggs for a second. If you were to see how chickens live, and the conditions in most factory farms are genuinely deplorable. They have their beaks removed so they can't hurt other chickens. They have no room to move. They literally just stand there and lay eggs. That's all they do all day long. And when people are presented with visual images of those chickens and the conditions in which they live, they start to think, well, you know what? I don't mind spending 50 cents more for, humanely treated eggs.
Well, I know one of the big things on this ballot question is that it will not allow businesses to sell goods from out of state. And Massachusetts, not a huge farming state. So I know this, and an opposing argument says what's significant about this is it would not only ban practices in the state, it would, which is largely doesn't farm, it would significantly, what's significant is it bans products outside those states. So that is, I would say, most of our food is actually coming from out of state. We mainly do plants and vegetables, not so much livestock. So a lot of our food would be banned.
I know they review the legality of all the ballot initiatives, but I can't help but wonder if another state would challenge that out of their own economic interests.
Well, I wonder if it wouldn't encourage other states to make similar ballot initiatives and then allow Massachusetts, and then Massachusetts would feel okay with importing livestock and eggs. So, I can imagine Vermont following suit pretty soon after if this ballot gets passed. I can imagine New Hampshire. And then we're opening up trade at least to local states. Would be my guess.
Interesting point.
Yeah, I can see how it actually would cause other states to switch, because not being able to sell to Massachusetts as a whole would obviously influence their market. So they would probably have to switch their ways or lose a giant business opportunity.
Yeah. Something else I think is worth addressing, you brought it up earlier, Tim, is how food retailers, they can't sell any of the eggs or meats that were an infraction of this proposed law, and there would be up to a $1,000 violation for each of these violations. So, as this law states, there would be just like a written order from the supplier saying, these chickens were raised ethically in accordance with the law. But the important part about this is the fact that the written statement is just in good faith. I'm not sure what kind of regulation there's actually going to go into saying, we definitely raised our chickens ethically, like who's to say behind closed doors what's happening.
I think you're making a really great point. Do any of you know about the controversy over RGBH? This is the artificial growth hormone that is given to cows so that they produce more milk. Have you heard about this?
Yeah.
So it's a Monsanto product, this hormone that gets injected into the cows, I think, on a daily basis. And while, there were lots of studies to indicate that the milk that gets produced by these cows is fine, other countries have refused to allow their cows to be treated with this artificial growth hormone. So in the United States, what they've done is they have farmers signing voluntarily, these forms that say we do not use RGBH in our cows. But that doesn't mean we know whether they're actually doing it or not. Are these cows actually being treated with RGBH, and the farmers are just signing this to sell their milk? So the same could be very true for all of these initiatives, the ways in which cows are treated or chickens are treated. We won't have enough evidence, so it'll be really easy to get around this law. But does that mean the law is not worthwhile? Well, we could say that about a lot of laws. It's difficult to enforce a lot of laws, right? So is the spirit of the law still worth putting into play?
Yeah. So, it would very easily be like if you just don't ask who you're getting your food from, like how the animals are kept. It's just right past it because it says knowingly selling. So if you just don't ask and you don't know, then it's kind of a loophole.
I think it's interesting to also look at where they're imposing the enforcement. They're imposing it on the retailer as opposed to the person who, I guess by what you're saying, is guilty of animal cruelty. And then you look further and they're giving an exemption for if you think that this is inhumane treatment for animals, they're giving an exemption for medical practices to then be inhumane. That doesn't make sense.
It does put the retailer in an odd position, right? I mean, the retailer can collect all these forms all they want, but it's almost like giving a false sense of security to the consumer who's thinking, okay, well, my retailer's doing the best job they can do, and so it must be okay. Right? There won't be enough checks on the system, definitely. And what's that going to lead to? I'm not sure. But again, do you throw the baby out with bathwater and say, well, forget this law, we don't need it, we can't enforce it, so we won't have it? Or does the law itself just raise consciousness about an important issue?
And I actually reached out to the Citizens for Farm Animal Protection because when I was looking at their financial records, I realized just about $900,000 is kind of like, it's not spent and they're just kind of holding on to it. And because they raised $1,300,000 roughly total, and they've only spent $151,000. And since the voting is happening in November, I'm wondering why they're holding on to so many of these donations rather than getting the word out there right now. But I'm still waiting for a response there. But all right, believe it or not, it's already 10:44 and it's time to take a break. When we return, we'll be discussing the legalization of marijuana. You're listening to The Decision. Pick your poison here on Wire, Wentworth's internet radio station.
Just click once and it'll work. Just give it a second. There you go.
Did you know 3 times the amount of water is used to produce a plastic water bottle as it is to fill it? Globally, 53 billion gallons of bottled water are consumed every year. 17 million barrels of oil are used in the production of plastic water bottles. That's enough oil to fuel 1.3 million cars for a year.
Okay,
What's
so
more,
our last segment
40% of bottled water is
shortened
taken
by
from municipal
about
water
5
sources
minutes.
like
We always
tap
have to
water.
prepare for
This message
there's
is brought to you by the
another
Witty
after.
Committee.
There
For
might be a
more
show at
information,
11 o'clock.
please visit
There won't be this week,
vanthebottle.net.
Would you like a healthy, efficient, and environmentally friendly way to get around Boston? Consider changing your commute
yes.
to the better by riding a
So,
bicycle.
you're gonna
Investing
end
in a
it 5 minutes
bicycle
early,
can
Jack?
help you travel to work or school faster while benefiting motorists by reducing street congestion. not to mention the great workout you earn every time you travel. With a fitted helmet and safety lights, anyone can enjoy cycling to their destination safely. More information is available online at massbike.org.
You're listening to The Decision, Pick Your Poison, the College of the Fenway's political news show looking at the upcoming elections. And this is Wire, Wentworth Institute of Technology's internet radio station. It is now 10:45. We are going to turn our attention in this subject to ballot question 4, legalization, regulation, and taxation of marijuana. If Massachusetts votes yes, we will join Colorado, Alaska, Oregon, Washington State, and the District of Columbia in legalizing marijuana for recreational use. But first, the news.
Hi, this is Matt Bennett. In today's headlines, Clinton aides promise to release more of her medical records. Although Democrats say Clinton's bout of pneumonia alone is unlikely to fundamentally alter the presidential race. Some say it adds to a growing sense of uncertainty. In local news, a Worcester High School football player joined the growing movement of kneeling during the pre-game national anthem started by Colin Kaepernick of the San Francisco 49ers. The movement is in protest of racial injustice and inequality in the United States against African Americans. And in the weather, the forecast for today is partially sunny with a high of 82 degrees Fahrenheit and a low of 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow, expect thunderstorms in the afternoon, continuing throughout the rest of the day. Thursday, we get a nice break with clear and sunny skies and a nice temperature of 69 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. It is now 10:47 a.m.
All right. For this segment, we will talk about
the air brushing against your face.
The legalization of marijuana. And so it would legalize marijuana recreationally for individuals above the age of 21. It would create a commission to regulate it, which would be called the Cannabis Control Committee. You would be able to use it, grow it, and possess it. It stipulates that you can have at most 10 ounces in your home, 1 ounce on you when you're in public, and at most 6 plants. They would be able to give a 3.75% excise tax, but local municipality could add another 2% tax on top of that.
Sounds like a lot of weed. How much did you say you could have?
I said you can have 10 ounces in your home along with 6 plants and then 1 ounce like on you in public.
Yeah, and you can also give somebody else up to 1 ounce without payment if it's legalized.
I like this deal.
But so yeah, and then some arguments around this are, well, for supporting it, it says it would replace a dangerous underground market, which is true. So there wouldn't be like as many gangs probably, because this would be completely taken off the streets and would be regulated as a whole. And then it would only be sold to adults, so like kids can't really abuse it. But
I have to wonder here with our listeners at the colleges of the Fenway if students, largely being some of which are within the age of 18 to 21, if that's really going to curb the underground market for that age group.
Yeah, I could see it going either way. Like I asked some people that I knew like what they thought about it, and it was pretty much split right down the middle. Half of them were all for it because they didn't have to kind of be sketched out about like using it, but the other half was like really against it because like the price would go up and they'd get taxed and like all this stuff. So it's like I know certain students are really on both sides of it, which is
well, it's funny.
crazy.
You've mentioned, you know, it's going to make my weed more expensive, and it's going to make my weed more expensive the other way. But then there's the third issue of people who legitimately think that this drug should be illegal and that it poses a health risk. And it's funny because I don't think there are many people within our age group that would really agree with that.
Yeah. As far as being against it, I've seen one of the arguments that I've seen against marijuana legalization. It always seems to boil down to the think of the kids kind of idea. Because in legalizing marijuana, you're not only legalizing just the plant, you're also legalizing extracts and edibles as well. So edibles can take forms of, say, candies, gummy bears, brownies, things that kids would normally, kind of be excited about eating. And if not stored properly, they might accidentally ingest it and subject themselves to it. So,
yes, actually, speaking of that, yeah, I have a quote from A. Wayne Sampson, who is a sheriff, and he is completely against it. And what he said was, parents can't even keep prescription pills away from their kids. How would they keep marijuana away? And I think that doesn't really fall on legalizing it or not. I feel like that falls more on the parents. They have to,
for sure.
Yeah, they have to store it in safe places where the kids won't get it. It's the same thing with alcohol. If you just leave it around, it is a possibility that the kids will get to it, but that's not because it's illegal. It's because
I have
it's
to
just
wonder what's
available.
inherently more dangerous about some THC marijuana in some gummy bears as opposed to getting your daddy's Vicodin.
Yes, exactly. If you compare the two, it's no question which one would be safer, but still a lot of people think it is a gateway drug, but then so another opposing argument would be the tax revenues we'd get would be nothing compared to the ambulance rides, and I was it didn't really make sense at first, but then as I kept reading, it said because people would switch to harder drugs and then overdose on those. So, but then I don't know. I feel like I know plenty of people that just stick with this and don't go any further.
I have to wonder if the same people that deal marijuana are the people dealing in opioid drugs that are creating this crisis, and if taking away their revenue stream would help that issue as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it would definitely since it would completely fade out one entire market, I think they'd have obviously less money to work with, thus making it harder to buy these more expensive drugs, thus kind of fading that one out as well a little bit, if that makes sense.
What do you mean by that? Are you saying that people who are currently making their money by selling marijuana, if it was legalized, do you think that their income's going to go down, so they're going to start trying to look for other means? Do you think that they're going to be trying to look for legal ways to continue their
I guess my assumption is that drug dealers sell multiple drugs, and if you take away sort of the high frequency purchases of marijuana, perhaps that leaves their only revenue stream as opioids, and that might be dangerous. So I guess you could make the argument on both sides.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing that's worth noting is the Cannabis Control Commission that would come to exist should this be legalized. It would consist of 15 members appointed by the governor. They would be responsible for regulations governing licensing qualifications, security, record keeping, health and safety standards, packaging and labeling, testing, advertising and displays, required inspections, and other such matters as the commission considers appropriate. So we are going to have a board of 15 people that are going to be controlling all of these, how we're going to be handling this as a state.
Well, they're going to be strict because of the governor's opinion on it. But
yep. Well, Massachusetts, we'll see what you think come November.
All right. So thank you for listening to The Decision. Pick your poison here on The Wire, Wentworth's internet radio station. Stay tuned in the next hour. You'll be hearing nothing but music.